One of the other things that I do to prepare for a tournament is really becomes more bait specific, and it even gets into the critical aspect of when you catch fish and when you don't catch fish. So many people think that when we go out and practice, and you hear guys talk about it all the time, is how they could have had this, huge bag of fish the day before the tournament started. And one thing that I've learned in preparing for tournaments over the course of the years is you can't afford to catch very many fish during the course of practice if you expect to have a good tournament. And when you're fishing a lake, especially any time of the year that you're catching fish that are up on the bank, that are shallow, those fish aren't replenishing themselves as much as the fish that are out on deeper structure do. So you're fishing for a fish here, when you're throwing at a boat dock or a stump or a lay down on a bank, you're fishing for one or two fish that might be around that stump. If you catch one of them during practice, chances are you're not going to catch that fish again in the tournament. So one of the key things that I do to prepare for a tournament, especially when the fish are on the bank, is I want to cover my hooks and try not to catch any more fish than I need to during the course of practice. You've been doing this long enough that you kind of get an idea of what a good blow up is on a buzzbait. You don't have to see that fish come to the boat. So I take just a little piece of tubular plastic and just slip it down over the hook. And you can see it's just a real small piece of tubular plastic. Slip it down over the point of the hook until it gets on the back side of the barb. It doesn't allow the point of the hook to be exposed, and you'll get those fish to come up and bite the buzzbait. A lot of times they'll take it down, a lot of times they'll come up and jump, and you can see what the fish is, but you don't catch that fish. The cool thing about it is pretty much any single hook bait that you want to throw, whether it's a jig, a spinnerbait, you can just simply take that piece of tubular plastic, put it over the hook point, down to the barb, and you're not going to catch those key fish that you might need in the tournament. There's nothing you hate worse than catching one and knowing that chances are you're not going to catch that fish again when the tournament starts. One thing about it, when you start looking at covering your hooks rather than cutting the hook off, we all have those particular baits that we think worked a little bit better than the next one, especially when you're throwing a bait like a buzzbait. The longer you throw a buzzbait, the better the sound gets from that buzzbait as that blade starts to wear. So the thing that gives me the confidence about using a hook cover rather than cutting the hook off is I can use the very same bait that I got bit on during practice in the tournament event. Same thing goes when you start talking about crankbaits. We all know that every single crankbait that comes out of the package isn't exactly the same. When you get that one particular crankbait that gets beat up and chewed up and just gets that right appearance and look, you want to throw that same crankbait again. So when I'm talking about crankbaits and not catching fish in practice, so many people, it's like, well, how can you not catch them on a treble hooked bait? All I do is I take and cut the ends of the hooks off, down past the barb, and essentially when a fish bites a crankbait, so often they've inhaled that whole bait that they're going to hang on to it regardless of whether there's a hook point there or not. A lot of times you can get that fish to come up and jump. You can get a good look at what the fish is. You can feel how hard he's going to pull. But then when it comes to the tournament, I'm still going to use this very same crankbait. I'm just going to get my box of Gamakatsu hooks, start with fresh ones every day. Even if I'm not cutting the points off, I want to pretty well change out my treble hooks on any crankbait that I throw a lot through the course of a day, especially if you're throwing a lot of round rock. You're going to nick points, straighten a crank or a hook out every now and then. So always change your treble hooks on a crankbait if it's got any sense of a dull point or anything like that. And there's no doubt that Gamakatsu makes the best treble hook there is on the market.